Wherever you are joining from, a very warm welcome to this Liberation Circle gathering. It's wonderful to see so many of you coming together across time zones to share this space of activist practice, reflection, and dialogue. Liberation Circle was founded on the wish to weave mindfulness, compassion, and social justice together. We believe that spiritual practice is not separate from the realities of our world. It is how we meet them with presence, courage, and care. Tonight we gather in a time of great pain. The occupation of the Palestinian territories by hardcore settlers is becoming increasingly violent and is becoming more of a daily routine. In Gaza, almost entire Gaza City is now under occupation. Hospitals and homes lie in ruins, and civilians all over the country continue to live under siege. Just this week, the bombing of Nasser Hospital killed medics, first responders, and journalists. And Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu called it a tragic mishap and expressed Israel's deep regret. The UN, press freedom organizations, and Western officials also condemned the attack and raised alarm over violation of international humanitarian law. Yet, once again, words have not been matched by meaningful action, and still the genocide continues. Each time I hear such news, and each time I see the images that come out of Gaza, my heart bleeds. For the families who have lost loved ones, for the children without safety, and for those who risk everything to bear witness. And so tonight it feels even more urgent to gather, to hold space for truth, to listen deeply, and to ask how compassion and justice can guide us forward. As ever this evening, our session will follow a simple rhythm: a welcome, a short talk by Ajahn Santamano, dialogue together, a short meditation, small group reflections in breakout rooms, and finally, plenary sharing and closing words of solidarity. But first, let me also introduce the team supporting this session. Doreen will be our moderator for tonight. Derek, as always, provides the technical support, but most of all, he's the founder of this Liberation Circle. And myself, Joyce, I am your host tonight and will be a timekeeper. And before we begin, just a few guidelines. Please keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. And when sharing, speak from your own experience and listen with openness and respect. Above all, let us hold what is shared with kindness and care. And now it is my joy to introduce our guest speaker, Ajahn Santamano. Ajahn is a monastic in the Thai forest tradition, known for his clarity and courage in bringing the Dharma into today's urgent realities. And he has also lived in the occupied Palestinian territories, witnessing firsthand the daily realities of life under occupation. This gives his teachings a unique depth, rooted not only in Dharma, but also in lived encounter with suffering and resilience. We are deeply grateful for his presence with us tonight. Ajahn, the floor is yours.
So thank you everyone for joining. Is the audio okay? I'll give a short 10-minute talk, and hopefully there'll be a slideshow of some pictures which you can see. And obviously, I will focus on my experience in the West Bank, but obviously, it's not to distract from what is happening in Gaza, but also not to neglect what is happening in the West Bank. So I'll speak for about 10 minutes. So we were based in the Masaferyata region just south of Al Khalil or Hebron, mainly helping with protective presence work. We stayed with a family in the village of Gavavis when we would hear of settler attacks, home demolitions, military harassment, etc. We would try and go there and hopefully by being there mitigate some of the violence experienced by Palestinians. We would document what was happening and try to spread the word about it. When we arrived in Palestine, we got through immigration without substantial problems. What was quite scary was how ordinary life in 1948 Palestine just seemed to be continuing unaffected by the genocide. What was quite scary was how ordinary life in 1948 Palestine just seemed to be continuing unaffected by the genocide. While the much more intense phase of the genocide continues unabated in Gaza, in Jenin, in Tulkarm, etc., in Masafer it is more the slow genocide that has been ongoing at least since 1948. The mechanisms and architecture of colonization weave into so many aspects of ordinary life. Since October 2023, the intensity of colonization has only increased. Home demolition, settler violence, military and police harassment, land appropriation, settlement expansion, building of new outposts, etc. In a settler colonial society, the level of brutalization that is necessary towards their own population in order for that population to carry out the brutality necessary to continue the settler colonial project reveals the self-destructive logic at the heart of any such project. One thing I've been doing is encouraging people to consider going to Palestine. Looking at it from the outside, it can seem like an impossible thing with things so intense in Gaza and parts of the West Bank. However, I would like to say that it is much more doable than it may seem from the outside. Uh, Feel free to reach out to me if anyone is interested. Uh, on the one hand, it is easy to give in to despair at the relentlessness of the machinery of colonization. But what I found most inspiring was the resilience of the people, the sumud or steadfastness. Existence is resistance, and we teach life, sir, become much more concrete than just phrases. No matter what violence, harassment, intimidation, etc., they were subjected to, uh, people just continued to do whatever was necessary to sustain life. Herding sheep, planting olive trees, making sheep's cheese, with Sarah, who was my 1.5-year-old Arabic teacher, insisting on helping by eating it and spreading it all over her face. The family we stayed with had 4 generations: the great grandmother, her daughter, the daughter's husband, the grandparents, one of their sons and his wife, and their 4 children. It was such a support being with them. When nothing was happening, we would play with the children or be with the elders. This made the anger so much more concrete in that these were the children they were trying to harm, or in Gaza even eliminate. Then there was the proverbial Palestinian hospitality and generosity. Everywhere we went, they tried to feed us or offer us something to drink. Even if people were living in tents, even if they were fasting during Ramadan, even when people had very little, the impulse was always to share, very different than the attitude of the colonizer. The British fascists, when they occupied Palestine, used to go and stay in villages just like us and make use of this Palestinian hospitality. Ilan Pape, in the Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, describes how they used this to gather information about the villages, the so-called village files. This information was later used by the Zionist militias during the Nakba to carry out their ethnic cleansing. I can briefly mention examples of the types of things that are happening. So Haj Khalid, the grandfather of the family we stayed with, had been attacked by settlers at night in January before we came. They came to the house at night, they broke his skull and caused many other injuries. And then just to add a few last month, you probably many of you heard activist Auda Hathanin from a village of Umal Khair was murdered by a settler. So we spent time with Auda. Or just a few days ago, the village we stayed in was attacked by settlers and people were beaten up. On our first day in Khair, we had to witness a home demolition. How they do these is that they gather the various units near the villages, bulldozers, military police, etc. This process takes a few hours. At this point, Palestinians don't know which village they will go to or whose house they will demolish. This adds an additional level of psychological torture. When the forces are ready, they drive to the house. They don't give people enough time to empty the house. The military surrounds the house, pushing everyone out. Then they send the bulldozers in. What struck me was the level of indifference among the 18-year-old soldiers. It was just another routine job for them. Or settlers would often carry out attacks at night in various villages in the area. Though technically they could be arrested, in practice they almost never were. They would often be wearing masks during these attacks. We did not witness these attacks directly, but they happened a few times while we were there. Sometimes other activists were present and were themselves attacked. On a few occasions, settlers burned Palestinian cars in villages like Susia or Tuba. Over the years, the military often destroyed many of the caves people used to live in the region. These caves were much better for temperature regulation, easier to heat in the winter and easier to keep cool in summer. Now most Palestinians are forced to live in concrete blocks which can be demolished at any time. Settlers would often attack Palestinians grazing their sheep, or settlers with guns would drive around the villages in ATVs to intimidate Palestinians. Sometimes, if there were settlers around, we would walk the kids to school. Settlers would come at night and put big stones in the middle of the road, or come at iftar time and uproot trees. So iftar is the breaking of the fast meal at Ramadan in the evening as the sun sets. And Palestinians would be detained or even taken to military bases while just attempting to graze their sheep. This happened to the father of the kids in our family. One day, while he was with his flock, settler soldiers came and said he couldn't be there. One of the soldiers with a big gun told the activist I was with, "You have come here to kill us all." So he was the one with the big gun, and yet he was saying that we had come there to kill them all. Or settlers would sometimes poison the wells so that when the sheep drank from it, they died. This happened at least once while we were there. So these slideshow of the photos are just some of the photos we took while we were there, depicting various various settler activity, and then also life in the village. So thank you everyone for taking the time to listen. Thank you everyone for joining. So I look forward to spending this next period of time with you.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you so much. I want Doreen to take over to lead the sitting at the table session. Is that okay for you?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, Joyce, and thank you so much, Ajahn Santamano, for what you witnessed and what you gave us. It really touched me also to see the pictures that go with it. So perhaps during the sitting at the table, we can invite also people who are joining in right now. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them. And in the meanwhile, I have also some questions for Ajahn Santamano. I'm deeply impressed by the fact that you went to the West Bank. Could you tell us a bit more about what was the motivation to go there as a Buddhist monk? Yes, please.
When the I had been aware of Palestine not too long, around since initially around 2014, when I first read the book by Ilan Pape, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. And since then, I'd been, trying to talk about this in the community I used to be in, Amravati Monastery, but unfortunately with very little success. Most people were just not interested. So then in June 2023, I left the monastery and I'm now just an independent monastic. So when the genocide started, I was quickly became involved in attempts to raise awareness about it or try to stop in becoming involved in various activism, helping out. And then back in the UK, I was helping at the various encampments. So they had an encampment outside Hackney Council, so one of the local town councils in the UK, which had £30 million invested from its pension fund in various companies supporting the genocide, weapons companies and others, or the university encampments like the one at SOAS University, and then there was an encampment outside the US Embassy, and then also, of course, going to protests and actions at various arms factories and protests in London. But then there was the thought that, sure, okay, we have been doing all this for all these months, and it doesn't, that just that question, is there anything more we can do? And unfortunately, the mainstream Buddhist institutions have been completely silent about the genocide, which is just extremely shameful and very dispiriting. But some people have been doing some important work. So that's how I met Anuradha, the person I went with. So she started anti-Zionist Buddhist group in the United States, and that's how we met online. And then through initially we had been trying to go for many months. So initially we tried with some organizations, but that didn't really work out. So Anuradha was in contact with some activists on the ground, some people who had been there before from the United States. So then through that we were able to they were able to help us arrange the stay with the family, and so it was just the two of us went by ourselves. And once one is inside, there's a very good network of activists, support network of activists, for example, transport, accommodation, arrestee support in case we get arrested. Uh, you know,
And by whom, sorry for interrupting, by whom was it organized, this support?
So this is just all the various groups that are there. There's a ISM who's been doing
Okay.
this for a long time. There's the Center for Jewish Nonviolence. There's
Oh,
the
yeah.
Quaker group EPI, Ecumenical Accompaniment.
Mhm.
There's the Italian group. So whatever groups or whatever, and there's some Israeli anti-Zionist activists.
Yeah, but
So
no Buddhist groups, I believe.
no, no,
No.
unfortunately
Okay.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, please explain. You went there in robes, I presume.
Yes, of course, of
Yes.
course. I don't
Yes.
have other other clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And how was the reaction of the Palestinian people?
I
What
mean,
was the
they
effect
were
of
like,
going there as a Buddhist monk?
I mean, they were just very welcoming.
Mhm.
And because we have our food rules that we can only eat from dawn to noon, and then food has to be offered. So I think the first few weeks in the evening they would check to just to make sure that they hadn't misunderstood that, oh, do you want something to eat, or to make sure I wasn't left. Uh, and then of course, after a few weeks, it was clear that this was just the rules that I was keeping. And then also during Ramadan, unfortunately, I couldn't join in the fast
Mhm.
because our timing is different. I can only eat after dawn, and they have the first meal, the suhoor meal before dawn, before they start the fast, and then the evening meal after sunset. So, but they would make sure I had something to eat at the appropriate time, and yeah, just the level of generosity and kindness. As you
Mhm.
know, as I said,
Mhm.
even if people were living in tents, they would always, any guest who came, they would try and share what they had, and then which was the settlers, it was a completely different attitude.
Attitude. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did it had any effect, Ajahn Santamano, your protective presence on the
Mm.
presence,
Yeah.
the
I
actions of
mean,
the settlers? Did it work in that way?
mm, I mean that's objectively, I think it's difficult to say for sure,
Mm.
because, and of course, I don't think it has any effect on the machinery of the colonization.
Mhm.
So they just continue like home demolitions or land appropriation. So on the larger scale, I
Mhm.
don't think it had much effect. But hopefully, it did have an effect in terms of discouraging settlers from coming closer to the house, so that after we left, almost immediately, settlers would come much closer to the house, and then just a week or two after we left, they came, and there was a, because obviously these settlements, they have mains electricity that goes to them, they have running water, and one of them was illegal even in Israeli law, and of course they are all illegal, they are all war crimes. Uh, but uh, but Palestinian villages don't have mains electricity, they don't have water supply, so they use these plastic water tanks for water, and solar panels and wind turbines to generate electricity. So settlers came and sort of broke one of the wind turbines, and it was quite a big one. They used
Mhm.
it to generate electricity for the village. So maybe to some extent it discourages settlers from being too brazen, but again, it's difficult to quantify what
Yeah, of course.
effect. Yeah.
Yes, of course, I can understand. So perhaps there's somebody in the audience who the participants who has a question right now. for Ajahn Santamano. It's for me, it's of an incredible worth that you are eyewitness to what's happening there and raising awareness in our community, and also raising the fact that it is, how you call it, it's in place to have this concern as Buddhist practitioners, to stand up for it. So I see two raised hands here. Perhaps Hala first?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for this account. I'm Egyptian American, so I have known about this ongoing genocide all my life, and I'm in my 60s. So part of me is glad that finally the West is paying attention. So my question is, even though this has been going on for multiple generations, almost 80 years now, and it's getting more and more brutal, do you believe in your heart that this can be stopped in a non-violent way?
I think it is important to look at Palestine from a lens of decolonization, and to recognize that the fascist colonizers always approach this from a framework of violence. So of course, no doubt people know about the Great March of Return and what happened there in and so the process of decolonization is not often not often in a sense the violence, inherent violence of the colonizer necessitates a sort of level of violence for that process of decolonization to actually occur. And of course, as Buddhists, we can get very so self-righteous and sort of. So I think it is important to recognize the context within which any violence that Palestinians might carry out happens. So I'm certainly not here to condemn the violence carried out by a colonized population. So no, I certainly don't think that non-violence, it is possible to end colonization through non-violence, which is an unfortunate fact that throughout history we have learned. And if we ignore that fact, then I mean, we are just participating in the framework that the colonizer has imposed. Many of you probably know that clip by Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, when he said, peace is the framework of the colonizer. It is liberation that we are aiming for. So I think as human beings who care about justice, I feel it is important to keep that in mind. And then on a spiritual level, then I suppose, yeah, obviously, yeah, I mean it's difficult to say, but I feel it is definitely important to always condemn the violence of the colonizer, and then recognize that the unfortunate necessity of violence from the colonized, that it's like I don't think we are in a position to judge judge about that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, this answers your question, Hala?
Partly because the force or the power, the military power is not equal. So even the violence of the colonized is not enough. And I think the world as a community, the people of conscience, or if there's any such thing in the leaderships, need to interfere with force in order to stop the ongoing genocide that's been going on for generations now. So because even if the colonized keep using force, it's complete. It's like fighting a sword with a feather.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. That's very clear. Thank you very much for clarifying that and also for your answer, Ajahn Santamano. If you allow me, I will go now to somebody else who raised a hand. Delia, please feel free to ask your question.
Thank you. Deep bows to you, Ajahn Santamano. Nice to see you. Thank you and Anaruda for going there and bearing witness and showing the face of the compassionate Buddhists in such a terrible place. Thank you. I mean, where such terrible things are happening, if the place is not terrible. I had two questions. One was, did you have any interactions with the settler colonists? In other words, that was a question that I had. And if so, how did that go? And the second question is, do the people that you visited and stayed with, do they have up-to-date knowledge of what's happening in Gaza? Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So of course, our primary aim was to be there in support of Palestinians, and so in a sense, it was the types of interactions we would have with settlers was to attempt to minimize them. It was not so we say when we have protests in the UK or United States or Europe, I think the aim or no, the one of the aspects is expressing one's own outrage at what is happening. But then the role we were playing there was, it's not so much to express our own outrage, but more to mitigate the violence Palestinians were experiencing. So then always approaching any situation from a perspective of de-escalation. So not contributing to escalation, because say how the military or police react is, if we get arrested, we get treated under Israeli civilian law. But if Palestinians get arrested, they get treated under military occupation law, and they get treated much more violently. So then in our interaction with settlers, I think it was very important to center the safety of Palestinians who we were with. And so so in a sense, it's not really conducive to enter into discussions with settlers. And even also, like the example I mentioned, when the Ahmed, the dad of the family we were with, was getting arrested by settler soldiers. So the soldier, he just said, "Oh, you have come here to kill us all," or I mean, they did have a sort of psychopathic quality, as in just the level of entitlement, the level of believing that they were the victims, that they were right, they were doing noble work, etc., was very, very noticeable. And in many instances, there was one example of a settler. He came with his dog, and he was just where Palestinians were grazing the sheep, and he started shouting and saying, "I am the descendant of Jacob and Isaac. I am the descendant of kings. All this land belongs to me," etc. Or in Khair, the Bedouin village where Auda was murdered by a settler, they would just walk through the children's playground with guns and dogs and their own children and go to a other section of the village that they had taken over. And of course they do this with complete impunity, and the military and the police always protects them. So yeah, I wouldn't say we had much interaction or meaningful interaction with settlers. And then regarding Palestinians, of course, with any colonial situation, the colonized always need to be very alert and very up to date in all the information that they have. So of course they have their own various social media groups or local neighborhood groups where they share information of things that are happening locally, but then also in Gaza. And say Al Jazeera or Arabic or other news channels would be on almost all the time in the background. People were definitely very aware of what was happening in the whole of Palestine, both Gaza, in the West Bank, in 48 Palestine. So, and then also locally in terms of settler activity, etc. Yeah.
So there was a whole network and very well informed. So perhaps we can go to Joyce. Joyce, you raise your hand. You have a question for Ajahn Santamano?
Yes. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah. As a woman of color, I'm drawn to the concept of the decolonization. And I was wondering what should happen to decolonize the Western Buddhist community itself as part of a colonized Western world.
Yeah, that is a question I've been pondering these last 20 years of since I came into contact with Buddhism, and I'm not really sure of the answer unless people, especially white people, start to realize the legacy that European genocide, colonization, slavery, etc. still has. Like recently, there was the 1st of August was a memorial in the UK, a memorial day for all the people murdered in the slave trade, the millions of people killed and enslaved. And a memorial for them, and there was a reparations conference. So like is it the William Faulkner saying the past is not dead, it is not even past. So and then bell hooks would often start out many of her talks by listing out all the various systems of oppression that operate in these societies. So like we live in a white supremacist, capitalist, imperialist, heteropatriarchal society. And then unless those people, especially white people who take on Buddhism, recognize that these things still operate, and many of these things are unexamined within themselves, then I don't think that such a decolonization can happen. And there's that Steve Biko quote that the greatest weapon the colonizer has is the mind of the colonized. And then often us, as people of color, can also have internalized these various system of oppression, and we become participants in them. Maybe we are affected by one of these systems of oppression, but then we might participate in oppressing another group, or that thing of internalized white supremacy. Or so I think it is important to learn history, and actual history, as in history of colonization, history of slavery, history of genocide across North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, and Tasmania, of course, where almost the whole population was exterminated. Of course, Palestine, or Sudan, Congo, which are other areas where resource extraction and genocide also continue. So unless that sort of work happens on a both individual and social scale, then the sort of colonized aspect of Western white Buddhism, it's I think that's just sort of one part of this larger societal need for a decolonization.
Well, thank you so much, Ajahn Santamano, for this answer, which I believe is important also because you know so much about it. I wonder, do you write about it? Because you seem to me to be very, important voice to be heard. So did you do any publications around this item and the Buddhist community?
I wouldn't say specifically. Unfortunately, at the moment, I'm mostly preoccupied with activism and doing what I can in terms of protest. I do have a Substack, Buddhism and Society, where I put various reflections and things like that, but then not specifically about this topic. And I mean, it would sort of take a bit of time and reflection.
I understand.
So I haven't yet been able to do that.
I understand. So that's good then that we have the recorder on. Huh? Okay. So I see some more hands raised. We still have time, Joyce, to continue. Okay. I'm not sure who was first, but I will start with Jonathan. Please feel free to ask your question to Ajahn Santamano.
Hi, Ajahn. We met in Amaravati quite a few years ago now, so it's so curious how it is today. And in the Thai Forest edition, I would say my teachers today include Christopher Titmus and Zohar Lavi, and Nathan Glide, who, I mean, have certainly been that bridge between the Dharma and being forces for peace and reconciliation in Palestine. So I guess my question is about the root of all this, isn't it? Which is greed, hatred, delusion. And Ajahn, where do you find the sort of inspiration to keep going in the face of all this greed, hatred, and delusion? Are there any stories from Buddha's time that might be helpful? I know Buddha averted a war, didn't he? It's a bit vague, that story. And I guess how can we, as the Sangha, how can we, this kind of Sangha, stop being so numb and so honestly, I'm British, I'm Chinese descent, but our British Prime Minister Balfour, he's the one who promised the land to the Jews, and we have such a blood on our hands as British people, whether by by nationality or etc. So yeah, in the face of all this, Ajahn, is anything from how can we take comfort from Buddha's times, or was a disciple of Buddha's who's doing what you're doing as a disciple of Buddha today, 2,600 years ago? Yeah, what can we do about and the root causes, as I said, greed, hatred, delusion? And sorry, my mind's a bit over the place, but yeah.
I mean, when people nowadays ask me, "Oh, how are you?" I usually just say, "Oh, day by day," and all we can do is continue. And ultimately, we don't know if what we have done has saved even or prevented even one child from being murdered in Gaza, but or Sudan or Congo. But I feel as human beings, the aspect of sila, human beings existing in this world, it is imperative that we do whatever we can in the context we find ourselves in. So then obviously at different times we would have different capacities, and because of the scale of what we are up against, so many activists, most activists I know are non-Buddhists or not Buddhists, but they have this sense of urgency, and in a sense, no matter what we do, it is never enough. So at the same time, to not give in to that sense of guilt of, oh, I should, of course, doing whatever, and then doing whatever one can in the context we find ourselves in. It's I suppose that thing of the sila, that aspect of if in the face of this Holocaust, this genocide that has been going on for almost 2 years, if we are silent in this context, if we don't do anything in this context, that itself is a choice, and that itself is karma. So what sort of karma are people doing by remaining silent? They are participating in this genocide. They are enabling it to continue. If everyone, sometimes walking through London, it is like walking through a horror movie. It's almost being surrounded by zombies. People are so indifferent. Every day, we watch videos of starving children, of children being operated on without anesthesia, children being bombed, journalists, hospitals, schools, and um, then how if this becomes normalized. So Dr. Ghassan Abusita, he's been to Gaza a few times, and he has been saying since the beginning of the genocide that Gaza is just an experiment for them in terms of how to deal with what they deem as excess populations. So, and then with capitalism, with the climate catastrophe, that will create so many people that the capitalism will deem as excess populations. And then if this framework of how we allow them to act is allowed to continue, then that framework will be used on a much larger scale in other places. So I feel it is imperative as human beings, let alone as Buddhists or spiritual practitioners, that we do something to try and stop this.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, this really answers the question, I believe, Jonathan. Yeah.
Doreen, there's space for one more short question and short answer.
It's yeah, well, that's a pity because there are lots of questions still roaming around. Also, there was one question. I'm sorry, Nick, that came, Nick, as already through the internet from Petra, and it has a bit to do with the same question Jonathan asked, more or less. She says, first of all, thank you so much for being an eyewitness. And she appreciates very much your braveness in expressing what is going on. So her question is, how can the Palestine people stay so resilient in a peaceful way against this violence without breaking? What is the source of their fate? How do they manage their emotions? And how do they keep a good spirit? So perhaps you have some answers to that.
Yeah, I mean, that is very difficult to see, but it was certainly very concrete. The sumud, or the steadfastness, that was there, the strength, and inner strength, and um, like I said in the talk, those phrases like existence is resistance, or we teach life, sir, like the poem by Rafiq Ziada. Um, they took on a palpable. It's like it was definitely me who was learning from them.
Mhm.
And this extended, there's Sarah, who was my 1.5-year-old Arabic teacher. One of the things she liked to do was ride on my shoulders, and so I learned words in Arabic like gom, gom, or stand up, or imshi, imshi, or walk. And even with her, because she had this sort of resilience that and especially noticeable with children, this sense of almost like a hypervigilance. So
Mhm.
even, and they all had in all the villages they had very liveliness, intelligence, but then at the same time, if they would notice uh, if uh, if we notice the settler, they say, oh, settlers or soldiers, then they would become very alert. So I mean, it's difficult to see the source of this resilience. It's like a training that they have been receiving since they were children, so that it um, uh, it's difficult to say. Of course, there is the religious faith, yeah, which was very prevalent. And I'm sure people have seen videos from Gaza where people's whole families have been wiped out, and they say
Mhm.
Alhamdulillah, or it is the will of Allah, and just yeah, that is very inspiring to see. But it's difficult to say what exactly
Yeah, to
the
pinpoint
source.
it, really. Yeah, yeah, I understand. So, yeah, Joyce, I just want to give Nick a chance because he has raised his hands for such a long time, somebody remarked, and I agree with that. So, one last question then, Nick. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, perfectly.
Okay. So I'll keep it brief. Just to contextualize, I have been for some years a member of Extinction Rebellion Buddhists, but also I have a background in South Africa, and my family was involved in the South African liberation. So I look at what's happening in Palestine through both of those things. And just last year, I had the privilege to meet this man, Iyad Burnett, from a little village called Bilin in the West Bank. I don't know if that's anywhere near where Ajahn was. But my question is, I'm trying to imagine myself as a Buddhist in the West Bank. And in fact, Iyad invited me to go. So I have been thinking about that. And of course, I take it as read that the people that I would meet in the West Bank would be practicing Muslims. Not all of them, clearly, but the vast majority. But my question to Iyad, and in a sense, my question to you is, I asked him, so what measure of affection is there in the West Bank for what I'm going to call Hamas? But of course, it's not only Hamas, it's militarized Islamic organizations. So because when I do my work in this country, I'm finding a lot of encouragement from interfaith work. And I'm just wondering what the problems might be if I was trying to engage in an interfaith kind of way with people in the West Bank. Are they still very much on the side of Islam as being a peaceful approach to life? Or have they been very much converted to the idea that militaristic Islam is the way forward? Thank you.
I think you would have to ask that when you get there. Hopefully, you are able to go. But yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. The framework of the question I find a bit disturbing, a bit white, a bit colonizer framework. So yeah, I don't think I have anything to say to that.
Yeah, well, I can understand. It's not so easy to answer. Well, thank you so much for your questions. Joyce, I give the word back to you, and thank you so much, Ajahn Santamano, for your replies, who were so thoughtful and thought through. Thank you so much, and from the heart as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank all the people who ask questions for their questions too. Yeah, I want to invite you, Ajahn, to guide a short meditation before we go into the breakout rooms. Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so shall I do around 7 minutes? Is that?
Yeah, that's okay, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, find a comfortable posture, ideally to keep the body as still as possible. And if you like, you can close your eyes, turning the attention inwards. And maybe take a few deep breaths just through the nose, breathing in as much as possible, feeling the whole of the lungs, the belly expanding as we breathe in, taking in as much air as possible, then pausing and then releasing all the breath so it comes out. And then take a few conscious deep breaths like that to start with. Then after a while, just allow the body to relax, allow the body to follow its own natural rhythm of breathing. The body has been breathing since it was born. It knows how to breathe. It knows how to breathe. It knows what it needs in different situations. So not attempting to control the breath, not attempting to breathe in any particular way, but just allowing the body to breathe as it likes, naturally. Breathing in and breathing out in your own time. And then just noticing in this moment, what is the body doing? Is it breathing in or is it breathing out? Just that simple. And as much as possible each moment, just keep the attention on that. Is the body breathing in or is the body breathing out? And stay with that knowing. What is it that changes as the body is breathing in? What is it that changes as the body is breathing out? What are the parts of the body that move? How do we know if we are breathing in? How do we know if we are breathing out? Just allowing the attention to gently rest on the process of breathing, just as a leaf rests on the surface of the water and moves with the shape of the ripples that arise. Breathing in and breathing out in your own time, and just noticing what is the body doing right now. And if you notice your attention wandering, again, it doesn't matter. However many times this happens, what is important is, whenever you notice, just gently bring the attention back to the breathing. What is the body doing right now? Is it breathing in or is it breathing out? The body has been breathing since we were born. If the body stops breathing even for a few minutes, it cannot survive very long. And yet, how often do we notice the breath? How often are we grateful to this good friend, which has always been there in the background, allowing us to continue with whatever we have been doing in our lives? Just keeping the attention as much as possible on the knowing. Is the body breathing in or is it breathing out? Seeing how much of the whole process of breathing we can follow. So coming near to the end of the meditation, just briefly checking in with oneself. What is the mind doing right now? Allowing the mind to gently come into the present moment. What is it like right now? And then there's the knowing, this is what it is like right now. So thank you everyone for participating in the event. Thank you everyone for the meditation. And yeah, we can, I look forward to spending the rest of the event with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you so much. Well, it's time to move on to the breakout rooms. And we'll go into the breakout rooms with a specific question. Let me see. A question Ajahn formulated. As someone situated in the imperial core, how can I work to counter the structures of injustice that exploit people domestically and carry out genocide? And the question is also in the chat, I think. Yeah. So Dirk, did you prepare the breakout rooms? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Perhaps just to give more explanation about the imperial core, if people don't understand. Perhaps I can translate it with people who are living in Western countries. Is that perhaps, yeah, appropriate? Okay.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
people like us, in fact. What can we do?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. I really hope you had an inspiring conversation and exchange with each other. And we are very curious about what came up, and perhaps you can enlighten us with some creative or original or whatever answers you had to the question Ajahn Santamano sent with you into the breakout rooms. So this is a plenary happening, so you can talk whenever you like, share. So perhaps somebody wants to start. We only have a few minutes, so let's take the time in a way that don't wait too long. I mean,
Can I share? Or do I
yes.
have to raise my hand?
No, go ahead,
Okay.
Anna.
So the one thing that was kind of a common thread is raising awareness, like keep talking about the genocide, not normalize it. And the other thing was boycotting the BDS movement. They have an excellent website, bdsmovement.net, where it lists all the companies that are complicit in genocide or a bit aiding it. And also there are apps that you can download on your phone to scan products when shopping in the grocery stores to let you know if the product is produced by a company that's helping genocide or not.
It's very
Thank
clear.
you.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing, Anna. So who wants to share next?
Hi, it's Jonathan. I think Ajahn question is more a starting point, and if it can be shared, maybe emailed around for people to contemplate. And I would say that in our session, I said I would write to my MP, and I think, and yeah, I don't have much more to say than that. Aside from it was very interesting to hear the two other perspectives in our small group. So it is. I guess there's something about equanimity, isn't there, as well as the the drive to change things. Is when do we look into the equanimity and the other four heart areas, Brahma Viharas, to inform how we move forward. Thank you.
And Ajahn Santamano, if there's anything you want to react to or to answer to, please also feel invited.
There's also a question in the chat about the app. Maybe that's important. What is this app which tells you which products and companies are good to be boycott?
There's
Oh, yeah.
one of the apps is no thanks.
No thanks. Yeah.
No thanks, and there's I think another one as well.
Yeah. Perhaps somebody can share a link of no thanks.
Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I will share it in the chat. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. Dara.
Okay. One of the things that I do on top of some direct action while I can is I've been in a group where we've been exploring internalized whiteness, and this is primarily with people of color. I live in the Bay Area, and this is just kind of like an informal group where, you know, because these things go really deep and subconscious and sometimes subtle and unconscious even. So, and I guess I would just even say it's like exploring internalized domination, like within ourselves, and how we can perpetuate that. So that's the group that I've been in. That's part of it.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. That's an interesting investigation. Thank you so much for sharing. Perhaps some groups can also arise in other areas than the Bay Area. So,
Can I just contribute as well? And I'm in the UK, based in London, and yeah, in terms of the BDS, we can individually boycott things, but also there are campaigns in the UK to get institutions to divest from their. So, for instance, the art galleries, like big major art galleries like the Tate Gallery, there's campaigns there, and in the local governments, local councils here, to have campaigns to get them to divest from their, for instance, the people who work for them, their pensions are involved in are funded, you know, like by investment that are questionable, and so there's pressure to because of people who are working there, you know, to sort of have the conversations with the communities of the local governments, like where I am, the communities, to put pressure on our local councillors, and then but the workers who work for the council, do they want their pensions money to come from these types of, so there's been incremental success in that, but also in Britain as well, direct action and campaigns against arms investments like Elbit Systems, you know, and then we have had to deal with this government and the prescription law, which has categorized the people who support such direct action, which is fundamentally non-violent, being described and prescribed as terrorist organizations. So there is an actual, people are going and being willfully arrested en masse to block the system of, so you know, this happens every time it's happened once, it's happening again. There's the big march on Palestine, but they're going to have 1,000 people show up and say to the police, arrest me. And what's happened is that is shown the disgusting nature of what this government is doing because it's funding and, you know, in many ways the genocide.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. A lot of things are happening. I'm also curious about our spiritual communities. How can we raise awareness there? How can we start to decolonize or Dharma or Buddhist spirituality? Any ideas about that? Raise awareness.
Anuradha raised her hand. Maybe she can.
Please, I didn't see. Please go ahead, Anuradha.
Hi, everyone. This is not a response to that question specifically, but yeah, I wanted to offer. I'm putting together a BIPOC delegation of mostly Buddhist practitioners for this winter to go back to where Ajahn and I were over the summer. So if you are a person who identifies as a Buddhist of color, please feel free to reach out to me. And it's one way that I know I do feel that protective presence can slow the pace of the occupation in the West Bank. But more than that, for BIPOC communities around the world to connect our histories, our traumas, our struggles, our hopes and dreams. It's something that can't really be experienced on paper. So please, if you're interested, or if you're interested in fundraising and helping support the delegation, we'd be so grateful. Thank you.
Is there a link to that?
No, in large part because of security reasons. But I know that your people know how to get in touch with me. So yeah, we'll be in touch.
All right. All right.
Doreen, I think we have to close.
Okay.
Maybe there's one question.
Yeah, one last question or one last inspirational voice. Who feels invited?
If not.
Not as a spiritual action, but as a real practical thing. I just put it in the chat. This is pot banging for Gaza. It's a really low level activity. Everybody can start at least in a little bit bigger city or so, just to meet at a certain time, not at a certain time, at Thursdays at 6 o'clock for maybe 15 minutes or so, pot banging and raising awareness for it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I just experienced it spontaneously today in Frankfurt. It's really great.
Okay.
Makes a lot of loss.
Thank you, Dieter.
And bye-bye. Thank you all.
Yeah. Okay, Joyce.
Yeah. Well, as we close, I want to thank you all for your presence, first of all, your listening, and your courage to be part of this circle. And of course, a heartfelt thank to you, Ajahn Santamano, for sharing your wisdom and compassion with us. Liberation Circle follows a steady rhythm. We meet about every 4 weeks to reflect, to practice, and to stand together in solidarity. And these gatherings, I think, help us to stay connected and nourished even in these challenging times. And I also want to extend a warm invitation. If you would like to share your ideas, suggest a speaker, or even step forward yourself, please do. We're really open for it. Liberation Circle is co-created by everyone here, and don't forget our newsletter with reflections, articles, and announcements of upcoming live sessions. And finally, we warmly encourage you to support Ajahn's work with a donation. He lives entirely on the generosity of the community, and your gifts helps him to sustain both his livelihood and the continuation of his teachings, and maybe his return to Palestine. The donation link is in the chat and in the newsletter. So let us close in solidarity and encouragement. The suffering in Gaza, in the world, weighs heavily on our hearts. But tonight reminds us that compassion and justice are carried together. May what we have shared here strengthen us to walk with courage, tenderness, and truth. And may one day Palestine be free. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you at our next gathering in about 4 weeks' time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I sent the wrong reaction just a moment ago.
Lots of it.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone can open it.
Thank you.
Microphone and say
Bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Palestine.
Thank you.
Yes,
Bye.
free Palestine, and thank you so much for your presence.
Thank you.
Love.